following is an artist interpretation used under the Fair Use Copyright Act.
From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
No copyright infringement is intended. This is solely for educational purposes only. The Buffalo Bill and Pawnee Bill Film Company, based in New York City, produced a 3-reel motion picture in 1912 titled The Life of Buffalo Bill. Cody himself appears in scenes that bookend the short film, a series of adventures presented in flashback as Buffalo Bill's dreams. The film had 2 other directors before it was successfully completed by John B. O'Brien. This is the film, The Life of Buffalo Bill. William Cody himself. William Frederick Cody, otherwise known as Buffalo Bill, was an American soldier, bison hunter, and showman. He was born in LeClaire, Iowa territory of what is now known as the U.S. state of Iowa, but he lived for several years in his father's hometown in modern-day Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, before the family returned to the Midwest and settled in the Kansas territory. Buffalo Bill started working at the age of 11 after his father's death, and he became a rider for the Pony Express at the age of 15. During the American Civil War, he served the Union from 1863 to the end of the war in 1865. Later, he served as a civilian scout for the United States Army during the Indian Wars, receiving the Medal of Honor in 1872. One of the most famous and well-known figures of the American Old West, Buffalo Bill's legend began to spread when he was only 23. Shortly thereafter, he started performing in shows that displayed cowboy themes and episodes from the frontier in Indian Wars. He founded Buffalo Bill's Wild West in 1883, taking his large company on tours in the United States and beginning in 1887 in Great Britain and continental Europe. Cody was born on February 26, 1846, on a farm just outside LeClaire, Iowa. At age 11, Bill took a job with a freight carrier as a boy extra. On horseback, he would ride up and down the length of the wagon train and deliver messages between the drivers and workmen. Next, he joined Johnston's army as an unofficial member of the scouts assigned to guide the United States Army to Utah to put down a rumored rebellion by the Mormon population of Salt Lake City. According to Cody's account of Buffalo Bill's own story, the Utah War was where his career had began as an Indian fighter. At the age of 14, in 1860, Cody was caught up in gold fever with news of gold at Fort Colville and the Holcomb Valley Gold Rush in California. On his way to gold fields, however, he met an agent for the Pony Express. He signed with them, and after building several stations of corrals, Cody was given a job as a rider. He worked at this until he was called home to his sick mother's bedside. Cody claimed to have had many jobs, including trapper, bullwhacker, 59er in Colorado, Pony Express rider in 1860, wagon master, a stagecoach driver, and a hotel manager. but historians have had difficulty documenting them. He may have fabricated some for publicity, but namely it is argued that in contrast to Cody's claims, he never rode for the Pony Express, but as a boy he did work for its parent company, the transport firm of Russell, Majors, and Waddell. In contrast to his adventurous rides, hundreds of miles long, that he recounted in the press, his real job was to carry messages on horseback from the firm's office in Leavenworth to the telegraph station 3 miles away. After his mother recovered, Cody wanted to enlist as a soldier in the Union Army during the American Civil War, but was refused because of his young age. He began working with a freight caravan that delivered supplies to Fort Laramie in present-day Wyoming. In 1863, at the age of 17, he enlisted as a teamster with the rank of private in Company H, 7th Kansas Cavalry, and served until discharge in 1865. The next year, Cody married Louisa Frederici. They had 4 children. 2 died young, while the family was living in Rochester, New York. They and a 3rd child are buried in Mount Hope Cemetery in Rochester. In 1866, he reunited with his old friend, Wild Bill Hickok, in Junction City, Kansas, then serving as a scout. Cody enlisted as a scout himself at Fort Ellsworth and scouted between there and Fort Fletcher, later renamed and moved to Fort Hays. He was attacked as a scout variously to Captain George Augustus Arms, Battle of the Saline River, and Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, guided impromptu horse race at Fort Larned. It was during this service at Fort Ellsworth that he met William Rose, with whom he would found the short-lived settlement of Rome. In 1867, with the construction of the Kansas Pacific Railway, completing through Hays City and Rome, Cody was granted a leave of absence to hunt buffalo to supply railroad construction workers with meat. This endeavor continued into 1868, which saw his hunting contest with William Cornstalk. Cody returned to Army service in 1868. From his post in Fort Larned, he performed an exceptional feat of riding as a lone dispatch courier from Fort Larned to Fort Zara, escaping brief capture, Fort Zara to Fort Hays, then Fort Hays to Fort Dodge to Fort Larned, and finally Fort Larned to Fort Hays. A total of 350 miles in 58 hours through hostile territory, covering the last 35 miles on foot. In response, General Philip Sheridan assigned him Chief of Scouts for the 5th Cavalry Regiment. He was also Chief of Scouts for the 3rd Cavalry in later campaigns of the Plains Wars. In January 1872, Cody was a scout for the highly publicized hunting expedition of the Grand Duke Alexei Alexandrovich of Russia. In 1872, Cody was awarded the Medal of Honor for service as a civilian scout to the 3rd Cavalry Regiment for gallantry in action at Lope Fork, Plate River, Nebraska. In 1872, Cody was awarded the Medal of Honor for service as a civilian scout to the 3rd Cavalry Regiment for gallantry in action at Lope Fork, Platte River, Nebraska. In 1917, after Congress revised the standards for the award, the U.S. Army removed from the rolls 911 medals previously awarded to civilians, or for actions that would not warrant a Medal of Honor under the new higher standards. Cody's medal was among those revoked. In 1977, Congress began reviewing numerous cases. It reinstated the medals for Cody and 4 other civilian scouts on June 12, 1989. Cody received the nickname Buffalo Bill after the American Civil War, when he had a contract to supply Kansas Pacific Railroad workers with buffalo American bison meat. Cody is said to have killed over 4,000 buffalo in 18 months during the years 1867 and 1868. Cody and another hunter, Bill Cornstalk, competed in an 8-hour buffalo shooting match over the exclusive right to use the name, which Cody won by killing 68 animals to Cornstalk's 48. Cornstalk, part Cheyenne and a noted hunter scout and interpreter, used a fast-shooting Henry repeating rifle, while Cody competed with a larger caliber Springfield Model 1866, which he called Lucretia Borgia, after the notorious Italian noblewoman, the subject of a popular contemporary Gaetano Donizetti opera Lucrezia Borgia, based on Victor Hugo's play of the same name. Cody explained that while his formidable opponent Cornstalk chased after his buffalo, engaging from the rear of the herd and leaving a trail of killed buffalo scattered over a distance of 3 miles. Cody likened this strategy to a billiards player nursing his billiards ball during a big run. First rode his horse to the front of the herd to target the leaders, forcing the followers to one side, eventually causing them to circle and create an easy target, and dropping them close together. In 1869, the 23-year-old Cody met Ned Buntline, who later published a story based on Cody's adventures, largely invented by the writer, in Street and Smith's New York Weekly, and then published a highly successful novel, Buffalo Bill's King of the Bordermen, which was first serialized on the front page of the Chicago Tribune, beginning that December 15th. Many other sequels followed the Buntline, Prentice Ingram, and others from the 1870s through the early part of the 20th century. Cody later became world famous for Buffalo Bill's Wild West, a touring show which traveled around the United States, Great Britain, and continental Europe. Audiences were enthusiastic about seeing a piece of the American West. In December 1872, Cody traveled to Chicago to make his stage debut with his friend, Texas Jacko Mahundro, in The Scouts of the Prairie, one of the original Wild West shows produced by Ned Buntline. The effort was planned by critics. One critic compared Cody's acting to a diffident schoolboy, but the handsome performer was a hit with the sold-out crowds. In 1873, Cody invited Wild Bill Hickok to join the group. In a new play called The Scouts of the Plains, Hickok did not enjoy acting and often hid behind scenery. In one show, he shot at the spotlight when it focused on him. Therefore, he was released from the group after a few months. Cody founded the Buffalo Bill Combination in 1874, in which he performed for part of the year while scouting on the prairies for the rest of the year. The troupe toured for 10 years. Cody's part typically included a reenactment of an 1876 incident in Warbonnet Creek, where he claimed to have scalped a Cheyenne warrior. In 1883, in the area of North Platte, Nebraska, Cody founded Buffalo Bill's Wild West, a circus-like attraction that toured annually. Contrary to popular misconception, the word show was not part of the title. With his show, Cody traveled throughout the United States and Europe and made many contacts. He stayed, for instance, in Garden City, Kansas, in the presidential suite of the former Windsor Hotel. He was befriended by the mayor and state representative, a frontier scout, rancher, and hunter named Charles Buffalo Jones. In 1886, Cody and Nate Salisbury, his theatrical manager, entered into a partnership with Evelyn Booth, a big game hunter and scion of the aristocratic Booth family. It was at this time Buffalo Bill's cowboy band was organized. The band was directed by William Sweeney, a cornet player who served as the leader of the cowboy band from 1883 until 1913. Sweeney handled all of the musical arrangements and wrote a majority of the music performed by the cowboy band. In 1893, Cody changed the title to Buffalo Bill's Wild West and Congress of Rough Riders of the World. The show began with a parade of horseback, with participants from horse culture groups that included the U.S. and other military cowboys, American Indians, and performers from all over the world in their best attire. Turks, gauchos, Arabs, Mongols, and Georgians displayed their distinctive horses in colorful costumes. Visitors would see the main events, feats of skill, staged races, and sideshows. Many historical figures participated in this show. For example, Sitting Bull appeared with a band of 20 of his braves. Cody's headline performers, well known in their own right, Annie Oakley and her husband Frank Butler, were sharpshooters together with the likes of Gabriel Dumont and Lillian Smith. Performers reenacting the riding of the Pony Express, Indian attacks on wagon trains, and stagecoach robberies. The show was said to end with a reenactment of Custer's Last Stand, in which Cody portrayed General Custer, but this is more legend than fact. The finale was typically a portrayal of an Indian attack on a settler's cabin. Cody would ride with an entourage of cowboys to defend the settler and his family. This finale was featured predominantly as early as 1886, but was not performed after 1907. It was used in 23 of 33 tours. Another celebrity appearing on the show was Calamity Jane as a storyteller. The show influenced many 20th century portrayals of the West in cinema and literature. With his profits, Cody purchased a 4,000-acre ranch near North Platte, Nebraska, in 1886. The Scouts Rest Ranch included an 18-room mansion and a large barn for winter storage of the show's livestock. In 1887, invited by the British businessman John Robertson Whitney, Cody took the show to Great Britain in celebration of the Jubilee year of Queen Victoria, who attended a performance. It played in London and then in Birmingham and Salford near Manchester, where it stayed for 5 months. In 1889, the show toured Europe, and in 1890, Cody met Pope Leo VIII. Cody set up an independent exhibition near the Chicago World's Fair of 1893, which greatly contributed to his popularity in the United States. It vexed the promoters of the event, who had rejected his request to participate. In October of 1901, outside Lexington, North Carolina, a freight train crashed into one unit of the train carrying Buffalo Bill's show from Charlotte, North Carolina to Danville, Virginia. The freight train's engineer had thought that the entire show train had passed, not realizing it was 3 units, and returned to the tracks. 110 horses were killed in the crash, or had to be killed later, including his mount, Old Pap, and Old Eagle. No people were killed, but Annie Oakley's injuries were so severe that she said she was never to walk again. She did recover and continued performing later. The incident put the show out of business for a while, and this disruption may have led to its eventual demise. In 1908, Pawnee Bill and Buffalo Bill joined forces and created the Two Bills Show. That show was foreclosed on when it was playing in Denver, Colorado. The Buffalo Bill and Pawnee Bill Film Company, based in New York City, produced this 3-reel motion picture in 1912 titled The Life of Buffalo Bill. Cody himself appears in scenes that bookend the short film, a series of adventures presented in flashback as Buffalo Bill's dreams. In 1895, Cody was instrumental in the founding of a town called Cody, the seat of Park County in northwestern Wyoming. Today, the Old Trail Town Museum is at the center of the community and commemorates the traditions of Western life. Cody first passes through the region in the 1870s. He was impressed by the development possibilities from irrigation, rich soil, grand scenery, hunting, and proximity to Yellowstone Park that he returned in the mid-1890s to start a town. Streets in the town were named after his associates, Beck, Alger, Rumsey, Blastine, and Salisbury. The town was incorporated in 1908. Cody died on January 10th, 1917. He was baptized in the Catholic Church the day before his death by Father Christopher Walsh of the Denver Cathedral. He received a full Masonic funeral. Upon the news of Cody's death, tributes were made by King George V, Kaiser Wilhelm II, and President Woodrow Wilson. His funeral service was held at the Elks Lodge Hall in Denver. The governor of Wyoming, John B. Kendrick, a friend of Cody, led the funeral procession to the cemetery. At the time of his death, Cody's once great fortune had dwindled to less than $100,000, approximately $2 million in today's money. He left his burial arrangements with his wife. She said that he had always said he wanted to be buried on Lookout Mountain, which was corroborated by their daughter Irma, Cody's sisters, and family friends. But other family members joined the people of Cody in saying that he should be buried in the town that he founded. On June 3rd, 1917, Cody was buried on Lookout Mountain in Golden, Colorado, west of Denver, on the edge of the Rocky Mountains, overlooking the Great Plains. His burial site was selected by his sister Mary Decker. On June 9, 1917, his show was sold to Archer Banker of Salina, Kansas for $105,000, approximately $2.2 million today. As a frontier scout, Cody respected Native Americans and supported their civil rights. He employed many Native Americans as he thought his show offered them good pay with a chance to improve their lives. He described them as the former foe, present friend, the American, and once said that every Indian outbreak that I have ever known has resulted from broken promises and broken treaties by the government. Cody supported the rights of women. He said, "What we want to do is give women even more liberty than they have. Let them do any kind of work they see fit, and if they do it well as men, give them the same pay." In his shows, the Indians were usually depicted attacking stagecoaches and wagon trains and were driven off by cowboys and soldiers. Many family members traveled with the men. Cody encouraged the wives and children of his Native American performers as part of the show to set up camp just as they would in their homelands. He wanted the paying public to see the human side of the fierce warriors. Cody was known as a conservationist who spoke out against hide hunting and advocated the establishment of a hunting season. Cody was active in the concordant bodies of the Fraternal Organization of Freemasonry, having been initiated in Platte Valley Lodge, number 32, in North Platte, Nebraska, on March 5th, 1870. He reached his second and third degrees on April 2nd, 1870, and January 10th, 1871, respectively. He became a Knight Templar in 1889 and received his 32nd degree in the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry in 1894. Buffalo Bill has been portrayed in many literary, musical, and theater works, movies, and television shows, especially during the 1950s and 60s when Westerns were most popular. William Cody was an influential person in creating the stories we now tell of the American wild western frontier. Thank you guys for joining, and as always, get out there and explore the American frontier. Thanks, guys. If you want to check out this full video, I'll leave a link in the description, and that way you can watch the silent film in all of its original glory. Thanks again for checking out Exploring the American Frontier.